One sec, one more. Uh, I think you're overqualified, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that's not a term that's used with me on many things.
Uh, that is great. All right, we'll go with that. All right. Okay. Hello, we're on to our second talk of the day with the Columbus Foundation's big table talks. We're excited to have Coach Bear Davis with us. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
All right, awesome. So we are doing something, we're trying something else out for FCA here in Central Ohio, and we want to have some just meaningful conversations. And I think especially with you, we're gonna tap into all levels of your knowledge here of coaching, but we're gonna do some hard-hitting questions. We're just get right to it because you know very you're in the midst here of college recruiting and the college recruiting process. Do we want to talk about the real things that college coaches are really looking for? So I'm going to go ahead and start right off the bat. First kind of thing. So I have a kid, no matter what sport they play, they're super talented. I think they're the best in the business, wherever they are. The coach will find them. Is that true or false? Do I need to do anything to get them recruited? That's what all parents want to know.
Yeah, of course. I can't speak for every single sport because I don't know how some sports work, but I do know you have to do some legwork. I mean, there's no question about it. I think even back when I was in the high school, I used the service and necessarily know who that service's contacts are, or
Mhm.
where they're going to try to steer you or push you. You can probably give them some generalities like, hey, I'm really interested in this division in this region, and they can do what they can. But you have to be a self advocate. You have to be able to do your own homework. And I think in today's world it's a lot easier to be a self advocate than it once was. Where you'd have to write, letters and send them in the mail. Now, we have so much technology to be able to promote, yourself in the right way. So I would say, I don't know if you necessarily have to spend overabundance of money. I think that might be a misconception. I think you can be a self advocate on a budget.
Okay, good. And maybe I'll even step even further back because we're just coming off of talking with a middle school coach. So let me ask you from all your years, and maybe I should just ask you really briefly. Can you give us just like 3 to 5 accolades? Like who are you? What have you done? Just so we get it, because there might be
Sure.
somebody on the phone who doesn't know who you are. It might be somebody out there.
No, that's probably likely. So I've kind of come full circle to where I've coached, high school lacrosse, and then I was able to coach collegiately at the Division 3, then the Division 2, then the Division 1 level. Went back to the high school level where coached, in the predominant, high school that was in the toughest league in the world, and so players, Division 1 players, 2 players, Division 3 players out the wazoo. So to see that level, then coach professionally where the guys are on the other end, guys have made it through college and now looking to go to that next level and draft and be a general manager of a pro team where you can see the development at that level. But I've coached third and fourth graders and K2s, and so internationally where you have a language barrier, so I've had a pretty unique experiences that help me see the game from so many different angles, which gives me an appreciation for every level of the game, and kind of like where each person playing the game is and where they might want to be and how to help them get there is something that I feel like I can kind of see it from 100 miles away or a mile away, and help help each individual achieve their goals.
So let me ask you that because I'll even ask a harder hitting question because this is really what I think most parents want to know. How do you know if your kid's good? How do you know if they're good enough? I think parents want to know that question. And do you know, can you see it in like second grade? Like what's your wise
Yeah, I think it's
viewpoint
the
here?
hardest thing because the development just changes growth. I mean, there's one thing that you can't change, and everyone's always like, "Oh, they're recruiting these kids too early." I was like, in some cases, absolutely. But if a freshman is 6'2" and he's 185 pounds and he runs a 4.7 40, okay, well, if he's done growing and becoming an athlete, he's still a pretty special specimen at
Mhm,
that level, you know. So
mhm,
you're
yeah,
not going to change that, you know. Like, so if
yeah,
I'm a, you know, if I'm a Division I top level recruiter, I'm like, okay, well, he's got pretty much everything as a freshman. Why am I waiting any longer to pull the trigger? That used to be the case until they, you know, slowed down the recruiting process a little bit. But you know, I always felt like, you know, like, yeah, those guys are going to go off the board pretty early because they've got all the intangibles that you know, hard to coach. You know, I can't coach 6'3". I can't coach
can't
four
coach
seven
height, yeah,
forty.
yep,
Yeah. I mean, if the student athlete already has all those, I think parents can be real with themselves about what the mental capacity of their kid is too. You know, are they doing all the things that they need to do to be special? Or are you making them do all the things, you
mm,
know, like do they want to do? And you know, and sometimes that is a tricky question because you know, parents can be very regimented, and then if they're honest with themselves, is that what their kid really wants? My favorite part about coming back to public school coaching in my hometown back at Hillary Davidson was to be able to coach kids that wanted to play college and kids that no desire to play college.
mhm,
You know, like that it's just high school lacrosse. You know, like
mhm,
it can be a springboard, but it's also just a guy that wants to be on a team and hang out with his friends, and that's
yeah,
okay. I think sometimes we get lost and think that it's this amazing only avenue to college, and you know, we have plenty of guys that went on to go play club in college or not even play, you know, and just had an
mhm,
amazing, fun high school experience and wear their letter jacket or do whatever, you know, like, and that's,
yeah, be a part of the team, yeah,
yeah. And, you know, when you're at some of these higher level prep schools, you know, in the Maryland location or New York, like there's a standard, there's an expectation, there's a lot of pressure. I don't know if that's always fun, you know, like
mm,
for a kid that doesn't necessarily maybe want to go play, just wants to be with his friends, but to be clumped into that pressure. And sometimes parents can be clumped into that pressure because they're sitting on the sidelines with the other parents. So I think number one thing I would say is just be honest with yourself. Does your kid want that? You know, let's start with that first before we go to the next step and prepare the kid. Yeah, like let's
right,
talk to our
yeah,
kid and not assume that our kids just want to be this Division I athlete.
yeah, that's a
So
good
that was a
point, and I mean, I
long-winded
think
answer, but I think
well,
it's
no,
a
I think a
very
lot of
important
parents
one.
would say, well, they don't know, right? I mean, they don't know what they want. They're like, blah, blah, blah. You know, they're whatever, 14 years old. They don't, how do they know? Blah, blah, blah. And it's true. I mean, I don't know that they totally do know, but I do think they know fun and not fun.
Sure.
You know, I think they can know that piece. I think that's easy enough. But you know, on that one, I think that there's also a this is my own experience, but what I've seen is there's either and I'm going to talk about the parents, not even the athlete for a second. The parents are either have already opted their kid out too early. Like they're like, you know what I mean? They're never going to play in college. They don't want to play in college. What's the point of continuing on? And you see this massive drop off, right? That's sixth, seventh kind of grades kind of stuff, you know, or they get into no, they're only going Division I. And to me, it's like this polarizing these two extremes, and I never can understand why there's not more in the middle. Like, again, do you love the sport? Do you want to play somewhere? Because you can play somewhere, right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of
I
places
mean,
to play, and there's a lot of
there's so many
ways to play.
options out there.
Yeah.
So many different levels, so many different options, and you know, so many schools that have amazing coaches at every level and just good experiences. So
Yeah. So what would you say with that? Why does this happen? Why do people just opt out of these things? Why does it have to be all or nothing? Why can't, is it because we don't know? So tell me, tell us all, because you've coached at so many different levels. What are the
uh,
options? Tell me the options. So I'm in
oh
high
well, I
school,
mean, we
I'm a
have kids playing
junior.
club. I mean, we have kids playing club having a blast in college, you know, like I mean,
So what
there's
is
so
that?
many different, there's even so many different
What's
levels in
club
club.
lacrosse? Like, let's tell us in college.
Yeah.
What's club? What does that even
It
mean?
it's wild because there's so many levels. It used to be just like, ah, there's student run club. Well, now there's like MCLA, which I consider like a virtual varsity type experience,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know. And then you have your like NCLL, which is traditionally your schools that already have a varsity program. They'll have like your NCLL program. So like Ohio State would be NCLL, for instance. But then you go to like you know, there's some student run programs that are exceptional. They always have been, like Ohio University, for instance. I just speak in terms from Ohio. So people they've
Mhm.
always had a very well run student club program. Now NAIA has become even more organized and sponsor a championship and got full-time coaches and phenomenal facilities. Division III has always been growing like crazy, and
Mhm.
I think Division I is it has grown. It necessarily hasn't grown at the Power 5 level, like
Mhm.
Utah being
Mhm.
probably one of the few schools. Michigan, it's been a while now, but a few. But traditionally,
Mhm.
it's your smaller D1 schools that have popped up, and I started coaching Division II in 1999, and we had two teams that made the championship. Then now I think this year they passed over 16 teams. I mean, it was kind of Division II is kind of this weird division that now it's not weird at all. Like it's a real
Oh,
thing, and
no. Well, yeah, I
it's a
mean,
beautiful lacrosse. I mean, they're playing high level and some incredible coaches that I know. So there's literally I feel like a level of experience for every single person that wants to go play at the next level in college. So all you gotta do is ask around and try to, if your high school coach doesn't know, you can find maybe another high school coach that sends a lot of
mhm.
people off to different levels. And the one or bust is odd,
Mind-boggling.
to me.
Yeah, and it's so sad because there's so many talented players who just love the game. And
Yeah.
again, but you could be so super talented, have all those intangibles, and you still don't want to play at that level because you just want to be a student, and, like not have the
Yep.
program run your life because playing for there's different ways that you play for that. I will say, so my family didn't know anything about lacrosse. We got brought in by a woman in my industry I worked for, and we were lucky enough at the time to live close enough for either Baltimore or Philadelphia where we could go to the NCAA tournaments, right? And so we'd haul over there, and you would be able to see D1, D2, D3, all the championships, right? For men and women. So you get this whole thing of the sport. And I will tell you at the end of the day, those D2 and D3 games were far more exciting half the time than the D1, right? So seeing like some of these, and you learned all these schools, and you're like, who knew that Lemoyne was so, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And but you do need to do your research. So I think that's the point I want to pull out from what you're saying. But most people, they just don't know, and that's okay, right? As parents,
Sure.
you do have to do the research and or have your kid do it and reach out to your coaches as a resource. I think that that's critical. And a lot of times I just don't think it's done. I think it's what people know or they see on TV, and there's a huge world beyond that. So on that
Yeah.
note, what do you think about this one, right? Because we get this one all the time. Can you not play in college if you don't play, or can you not? What do you say to the kid who doesn't want to play club? They want to play club sports. Do you have to play club in order to really to go play at different sports in college?
I, like, do you have to be on? No, I don't think, and that's sport specific as well, because
That's a good
I
point.
do
Sports
believe some
specific.
sports are going to get heavily, like football is just a different bird. Like there's
Hmm.
not really a club football thing. You do your sevens passing leagues, and that's about it. So I can't say there's a blanket statement for each sport, nor can I speak on every sport. I do think you can piece together certain scenarios for yourself in lacrosse. Speaking of lacrosse, where you can go to individual showcases, but they're kind of set up now to where you get promoted by your club coach to get into those events. So if you don't have an advocate, it's hard to necessarily get into those events.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
it
Yeah.
can't it can be difficult for sure. If you are not going to play club and you choose to be independent per se, you better
Hmm.
be at a pretty good high school that can promote you. Or if you're, I mean, and it depends on your aspirations. If your aspirations are to play Division I, it might be a difficult path. Like the reality of it is it might be difficult. If you just want to go play somewhere, I don't know if clubs really, you better be able to cut up your own film and self promote and try to go to like their prospect camps wherever you want to go. Whoever's having prospect camps that you like that school. It's just so I mean, those top 20 D3 schools, like they've been done with their 2026
Oh, yeah.
class for a long
Yeah.
time. Like
Hmm.
so it just depends. There's division ones that are still recruiting a 2026s. So just to say blanket even a division is hard to do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Good point.
'cause,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like and even with the landscape of transfer portal and JUCOs and I think the recipe changes yearly. Like it's been crazy. Now you finally got the COVID six,
Yeah.
7 year kids, that are moving out.
Yeah.
That 7th year attackman that's been clogging up that spot for a long time. Like those are real. And that
Yep.
affected the whole recruiting process. So
Yep.
to say like each year is going to be exactly the same, I doubt it is for any sport, honestly. Like I think it's a little bit of a moving target. I haven't recruited as a college coach since 2011. So, from that perspective, it's been a while. One thing that hasn't changed is what I'm looking for versus how the
Yeah. Let's go.
process goes.
That was my next question. So go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
What you're
What are you
looking for
looking for?
versus what the process is,
Yeah.
is totally different in my opinion.
Yeah. So what do you look for?
Whew, depending on what, that's a loaded question because it depends on the perspective that you're asking. I've been a high school coach helping a young person, male or female player,
Mhm.
get to college. I've been a college coach recruiting. And then I've also been a parent trying to help my kids. So it's like I think those are all uniquely different
Oh, I
seats.
love it. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go with the high school coach trying to get the kid to college. Let's go with that one. That perspective. Perspective number one.
Okay, so if you know what it takes to play at certain levels, I think the most important thing is that the high school coach is fair to the player and their parents about where they think they could go. I don't think it's fair for you to for a coach to pat themselves on the back for putting so many kids in Division One when they know some of those kids that they're sending there, they're not ready for that experience. Like that's not the right fit. Maybe you know, maybe talent wise, they look like it. I've had, some hard conversations with kids, as they're sophomores and juniors, like, hey, you have the talent, but here's the thing, you're not getting here early. You don't stay late. Like these are things that, Division One, caliber players or high level D3, D2, this is what they do. And they don't have to be asked to do it.
Right.
So, and I'm not going to argue with the kid. I'm not going to say you have to do these things. I'm going to say if you're not willing to do those things, let's figure out what level might be the right fit for you then. Like if you are willing to do those things, okay, some different doors are going to open up for you. But I'm out of the business, I think, of telling a kid, nope, you have to get here early, you have to stay here late. Like, I'll just tell them what the advantages are now of doing those things.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying they're
Yeah.
out of the business. You're not going to sit there and tell them. You're going to say, hey, this is kind of these are the habits. If you showcase this, it's up to you what you do.
Yeah. Like why? I mean, I just don't think that why are we in a world where we're making kids do things they don't want to do? Like again, I just, like it's hard enough to get a kid to come out to play lacrosse. Like I don't want to make the kids that just want to be out there with their buddies feel bad about not coming early or staying late. Like they have no desire to play at the next level. Maybe it's all about winning that season. I think those conversations need to take place too. Like, hey, if we're not winning games, what are we doing differently to win games? But I also have to ask myself, what am I doing during that hour and a half or 2 hours I have them at practice? Like I'm not going to put that all on them. That's got to be a little bit on me as a high school coach.
Right. Right.
Like I got to take some ownership of that. So again, it goes back to as a high school coach, I think my job is to appropriately assess, help, educate, and promote my players that want that. And those take conversations, one-on-one conversations with parents and players, and be okay if a kid says, I don't want to play. Or be okay with a kid that says, I want to play club. Like don't be like, oh, she was so much better than that. And I was like, okay.
Hmm.
Like maybe
Well,
explain to them. Yeah.
how has that gone over with parents? How does that go over? Is that like the hardest part of the conversation, or is it like they're open to it and they're like, oh, okay? Because it sounds like you touch
Oh,
base with the parents pretty regularly.
when
That
I
in
was
that
coaching
case.
when I was coaching in Maryland, I had kids leave the school that I was at. The school was like not happy with me the way that I would be very straightforward with parents. And I
Hmm.
just honestly I refused to bend my integrity as a person and a coach in the industry. These are like people that I know, like
Hmm.
these are people that I've spent years working with as peers. And just because a wrong assessment on a kid, it's not right for the kid, it's not right for the coach I'm sending them to. And parents would be like, well, then if you're not going to advocate for my kid to be at this school, then I'll go to another school. I'm like, well, maybe
Yeah,
that's the right thing
that's
for you. Like maybe
that's a
I'm
good
not the
yeah,
right
that's a good
guy.
point.
And I'm okay with saying that. And not that I'm proud of it, but the one of the families that did transfer and go to another school, that kid lasted 1 year at that school. And I forewarned them. I showed
Yeah.
them stats. I showed them everything. I was
Coaches
like,
know, but that's you bring up a good point. I don't know how many parents, I don't know, maybe they do think this, but in the world of, how much are the high school coaches talking to the college coaches? You said something very important. You're saying you as a coach, when you're putting that product on the field or whatever, you don't want to do a disservice to another coach that you have a peer-to-peer relationship with and respect, and you're kind of like passing them something that you don't think is you really believe in, I think is what you're saying, right? Because that coach to coach relationship is critically important.
well, I do know it's a fine line. You don't want to ruin a kid's opportunity. You don't want to say,
Yeah.
no, don't take this kid. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say, like, if you have a player that it would be a lot for them,
Hmm.
and like maybe they've talking like gone 7 states away, and they could barely be away from their parents for 30 minutes, let alone,
Hmm.
So I think those are like,
Mm,
you have to say, hey, look, this player is going to come to you. You're going to have to work with them. Like those kind of conversations I would
got
have,
it.
like this could be a project, a little bit of a project, but if they make it through these certain things, they're going to be phenomenal. Like you got to be real, and be open and honest.
So, okay, so let's go to perspective number two. Now you're on the college side and now you're recruiting. So what are you looking for on that side? Or what are you not looking for? What's like a red flag?
Oh man, there's so many. I've seen so many good videos recently. I mean, you're looking at just I feel for me it's like the approach, the love of the game, the how they treat their teammates, how they all the intangibles, all the things. Like everybody on the field sees the kid score the goal. Everyone can see when the guy scores a goal. I think that's, you see 47 coaches, start writing down notes like, I scored a goal. I'm like, okay, great. We know he can score goals. I've seen his stats, like
Right. Yeah.
how,
Yeah.
like what happens when he misses a goal? What's his reaction to that? What people don't, well, a lot of players don't understand is you got a short audition. Some of these coaches have 30 minutes to watch your team play, maybe an hour at best, at different events or
Yeah.
tournaments. We're almost looking for ways to not recruit you as much as we are ways to recruit you. So, you miss a ground ball. What do you do after that? Like what's your follow up? How are you hustling all the way to get off the field when you're subbing versus pull the brakes up at 10 yards and jog it? Like are you are you buck it's like are you buck strap? Do you have your mouthpiece? Do you have all the little things? Like it sounds crazy, but like it's
It
that
sounds
fast. Like I'm
mhm,
looking for things, at a rapid
to
rate. What's your
disqualify you. Right.
yeah, yeah, it's like scratch, 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 like and I remember once I was talking to a coach, actually Coach Bresci once when he was here, and I was talking to him about recruiting. And he said, back in the day, I used to love it when we all had the landlines. He's like, because, I'd be talking to a kid or a student athlete, and it's like the sister would pick up the phone. Yeah, because we'd all be using the same phone.
Yeah. Same
And
phone.
he goes, I would listen to how he would react to that. Like,
Oh,
how
good
does he
one.
treat his sister in his own house?
Yeah.
Like, because that's how he's going to be in the locker room. Like, does he say, excuse me, I'm on the phone, I'll let you know when I'm off? Or is he like, get the heck off the phone, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, what
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
doing? And it's just funny, like it makes a lot of sense, like how does this person treat, humans around him, all the time. And that's how they're going to be in the locker room when you're not there.
So what about parents? How do do you factor them into the recruiting process?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think parents are part of it. I know some coaches will say, well, we don't recruit the parents, we recruit the kid. And I think that's to a point, but I think they're part of your culture. Like, think about any great program. Who's there before the games, tailgating? Who's there
Mhm.
after the games? It's your parent culture. Like, who are you bringing into your program? Who raised this kid?
Mhm.
Like, I mean,
Right. Where'd
I
they
mean,
come from?
it's important. It's not the end all be all. Are they willing to let go and let you, become the mentor that you need to be? Are they going to be supportive of you? Those are things that you ask. And I think parents can be tough because I always, when they came to visit, I like to pull the kid in alone. I want
Mhm.
them to answer the questions. I don't need to hear the mom and dad answer questions. There are questions
Mhm.
I want to hear, ask them, but I want to get to know the kid and how he's going to respond to certain questions. Sometimes they sit there and they look at their parents and they let their parents answer for them. It's like, no, this is big boy time or big girl time.
Mhm.
Time for you to answer the
Mhm.
hard questions.
Right. Right. So then when you put on the parenting hat on perspective number three there, what would you say for parents in like helping to prep their kid? It's like tell me from that perspective.
Well, that going back from the parent perspective for me, it was one of those things where here we did like a grid, and it's like, what are all the important things? What's important? Well, all right, well, financial aid package, team culture, how many people are in my position, cafeteria food, dorm life, location, school size. I mean, put it all on paper, and then you
Oh,
can
I
put,
love that. That is such a
yeah,
coach way to break down that problem.
yeah. Well, anything and everything
Okay.
that's going to be important to you. Like what
Right.
what is it? Is it a big city? Do you want to be in a
So you're
big
doing
city?
all the rankings. Yeah. Right. You're breaking the
You
whole thing
just
down.
list everything, and then you put all the schools, across the top that you're going to visit. And then I would say, when we visit, this is what I did with, my son, at least. Sadie was my daughter was a little bit different in her approach to recruiting, but with him, we were like 1 through 5, 5 being awesome, couldn't be better, 1 can't stand it. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, when you go on your visit, make sure you're experiencing all these things. These are the questions when your coach or whoever the admissions person says, do you have any questions? You can look at these things, and if they weren't answered, then those are the questions you need to ask.
Oh,
So I'm
that's an
coaching them
awesome tip.
through.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coaching them through, like, all right, well, because I think sometimes they feel like they got put on the spot. Like, do you have any questions? Or like, I don't know. Like, what questions am I
Right.
supposed to ask? So what's important, that comes up to answering questions. Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
so, and I think just going through that exercise with your kid and just saying, hey, what's the most important? I mean, for Sadie, one of the most important thing for her was, I don't want to be in Gray Sky, Ohio. I need to be
Mm-hmm.
in the sun. Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's Florida.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we
Right. You can get rid of a
immediately
lot of
looked up
stuff.
Florida
Right.
schools. So that's, a process of elimination. Um, you get your financial aid package, and then you look at the majors and you spend time with the professors and you start ranking. And it's funny, you start seeing what the ranking score is, who has the highest
Yeah.
ranking. But the one that doesn't show up, and I told him, is your gut. Where do you feel home? That one's just not, that's a hard one. I was
Yeah.
like, but it's not hard. I think you walk in, you're like, all right, this feels like home to me. Like, you're gonna be there for 4 years. Does it feel like home?
Right. Yeah, I love that. But I love that you already have like that. That's an incredible tip for parents and just actually do the ranking and the whole thing, right? That makes so much sense. So I'd say like stepping back in everything we're talking about, what are the tips that you would give to, I guess I'd say what I'm trying to get to is the perspective of the coach, right? So you as a coach, how do you it's almost such a humility question, but how do you stay grounded as a coach to know how you know how important you are? You've seen this through all the years. You've been on all these different levels, right? So you as a coach, how do you make sure that the parents understand your role, right? You understand your role, and how do you not get one bitter, burned out? How do you stay revitalized and all that, right? How do you stay grounded in being a coach? Because coaches are just constant give, right? So what's this is more of a question from other coaches looking at you, saying, one, how the heck have you done it? How have you stayed, this excited about still coaching after all these years? What are some of those factors?
Yeah, that's a good, I mean, it's a good question. I feel like when people say it's a good question, they don't have a good answer. So like in general, I think about this all the time, and I feel like um one thing I always, and I even talk to the pros about this. We talk about this in the locker room several times, is never forget it's a game. And what are games? They're supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to be fun. Like, and once it's not fun, you need to be done. Or you need to go back and reflect on what was fun. What is fun? What is exciting? What excites you about the game? Um, we won a championship with the Ohio Machine, and I I will tell people that winning the championship was awesome. Getting the ring, doing all that was awesome. I would say I don't know if I would say it was the most fun, and I don't know why. I don't know why, but I feel like all the work that I did every day to prepare was always to win a championship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it was almost like expected. When you win it,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen because all the work we put in. So it was fun. It was relieving. I would say it was more relieving to know that the process was correct at that time that year. So it was more relieving than it was necessarily fun. Fun to me was the relationships that were built, the laughs, the hard plays, seeing guys overcome, some situations, or bounce back. Like, so many, the journey of it's supposed to be fun. The end result is expected. That's the standard, in my mind. Like,
Right, the
uh,
output.
it's more disappointing when you lose than it is almost like fun when you win, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because it's like, that's what we're supposed to be doing. Um, so when people think, oh, if I just won the championship, that would be the most fun thing ever. It's like, don't lose sight of the process. The process is supposed to be fun. The bus rides, the kids, the seeing them grow up and be good family members, good community members. Like, that's why you're doing it. And you hope that that little process part was, you had a hand in that, and you go back and, you talk to them and they're like, yeah, coach, you hear the story. It's like, yeah, when you got us up and you did this and you held us accountable for this or whatever. It's like, now it gets me through my grind now, at times, like, and that part is what excites you, like,
Mm-hmm.
now for me, it's like urban lacrosse, like going in and resilience a lot of times is not things that we see our urban kids have, like they're used to failure. They're predetermined failure. They're just like, I'm not going to be good. If I say I want to be good and I'm not good, then that's just going to be another letdown in my life. So why put
Oh,
myself in that
out there?
position? Yeah, why put myself out there? It's just, it's one more failure and disappointment. And that's the mentality. So I think lacrosse has been something that we can utilize to build resilience. Like, you can do hard things. You can do this, and you see a kid catch his first pass or scoop up his first ground ball and their eyes light up, they want to run over and tell you about it, like,
Yeah.
that's fun,
Oh, I
like,
love that. Because it's
yeah,
like completely something out of their normal day to day, so they don't really have any preconceived notions, and they can actually build up, you're saying, some wins there and some resilience. So for those of us out there who don't know, what is urban lacrosse?
Yeah. So, uh, as you mentioned, I have really a lot of really cool experiences. I've been fortunate, to coach at a lot of different levels. One of the things that was like I had not been able to do is like grow the game in ways I wanted to. I always saw people doing some great things, especially some of my former assistants, even growing lacrosse in Africa or Jamaica and all this. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, wait a second, we have a city right here, that hasn't been exposed. So I want to do something locally. And we've been able to start a nonprofit where we go in and we work with inner city kids, whether it's the PE classes, after school programming, YMCA, rec centers, and introduce the sport and build out our academy teams in the spring where not only do they get to try it, but they can actually play.
Oh, I didn't know. So so in the spring, you're running full teams now at through urban lacrosse?
Yeah, we had a team a couple years ago. Due to some whatever, so there's always something that kind of went a different way, but we were able to place a lot of kids on different teams that they can participate with. But now we've now secured a home base, which allows us to recruit and bring kids into a location where they can play. That will be fresh again this spring. So that's where we're in the middle of building out that campaign.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I know through many a different kind of angle that you put this into Columbus City Schools, right? Through one of our FCA kind of guys, Zach Fleer, I think is how I ended up talking to him one day at a basketball camp, and he's like, "Oh, I know. Do you know who Bear Davis is?" I was like, "Yes, I do." Right?
Yeah,
He's like, "Yeah, we came down and tried lacrosse and the whole bit." So that's fantastic. So I love that. Well, we'd love to help figure out how to support that and do more with that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So that's one of my like say
Somehow you fit
last.
that in. I don't know how you fit in all these things into but you are a coach, so you've got good time management as well.
I don't know about that. You ask my wife, she might tell you something different.
Is that right? You would think I would think coaches have like great time management themselves. Maybe you're just good at managing other people's times.
I probably put too much on my plate. I have a hard time saying no. I've been getting better at it though. I think that's
All overachiever right? If you want something done, give it to a busy person, right? That's what the whole little phrase they always say is. Yeah.
yeah, this probably makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. Yeah, so that was I'm sorry for all the long-winded answers, but that's that's what urban lacrosse is. That's what I think when you said coaches going back, and I don't forget, like why you're doing it, like it is the medicine game, and it's got to be the medicine game for you as well, like
Mm-hmm.
whoa. And for me, it's just easy. I've been so fortunate that someone gave me a stick, and even during this call, it's kind of wild. Even during this interview, my phone pops off, and it's the person that gave me my first stick. Actually, it's
Really?
called yeah. So here in Columbus, we have Healthy Pets, and little known fact that Dr. Chip, Taylor, he owns all these Healthy Pets. He was a teammate of mine, and he was a kid I was going to school with. He's like, hey, here's a stick. I tell this story literally in every PE class I go to. I'm like, just because I had someone say, here's a stick, do you want to go play lacrosse? And I think that's just important to me. It's like to go out there and give someone that same opportunity. So, like just try it.
Yeah.
Like you never know
Yeah.
where it's going to take you.
Well, I two things on that. One, that's called divine providence, just stepped in while we were on this call, right? And the second thing is, I
Right?
think lacrosse. I mean, I've always said this. I didn't know anything, but I mean, I lived in Maryland, and still, we didn't really have it in my schools or anything, and somebody else pulled us in. And I think that's one particular sport that when someone invites you in, say yes. But I do
Yeah.
think we need to, like I get in trouble with my family. They're always like, stop telling me about lacrosse because I'm always just personally trying to grow the game because of how much it's given to me personally and my family. But I do think you need to invite people into it to experience it because it can be intimidating.
I think the coolest thing that we're starting to see now, and I've talked to this a couple of people about it, but like if you look at Casey Powell, who is well known in the sport, the Powell brothers,
Mhm.
and him starting speed lacrosse, like just a way where you get two goals, no equipment, can be co-ed, it can be your family, it can be whoever, and you're just playing this modified backyard lacrosse. Like, I think when you see the best saying, we need to scale this down, we need to make this like where anybody can play.
Yeah.
I do think even USA lacrosse going to the sixes model for international, being a part of international, something we don't really get here in the United States is the lack of sponsorship, or the lack of investment that other countries have to put into their team. So to be able to play in world games, European games, Olympics for 25 people, 5 coaches, like not everybody has the luxury of being able to
Yeah.
pay for that.
Sure.
Like it's a lot. So for America and Canada, and then to step back and say, all right, well, we're going to do this for the betterment of the game, to grow the game. I think some of the things that PLL are doing now, with Urban Lacrosse Academy, stuff that we're doing, Harlem Lacrosse, like lacrosse can look different than what we all think. So like that club $10,000 investment, it's so narrow of a path. Like in order for this game to grow, it's got, like just stick, goal, ball. That's,
Yep. Yep.
3-on-3, 5-on-5, whatever it looks like. I've created now a gym floor. I can take a regular gym floor and I now have all my rules based on, Columbus Record Park gym floors, and we go in and it's automatic, like I've created these rules. I come in, I talk about it, we play awesome lacrosse now.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and it is, I don't know I wish that, here's my other part. I wish there was a clinic. So I've had a couple times during these kind of things where we either had a coach who we had an awesome coach. The first coach my older son ever had was amazing. And he had played, I think he was at Catholic University and he was a coach there. And then he was just doing rec, but he brought the parents in, he taught us all of this stuff. Right. So we got taught from the get go because he's like, how many people have any idea? And nobody knew. So he taught that. And then we've had other times over the years where we'd have coaches like at Resolute and they'd sit us down and they'd teach us like how the game works and what things are. And that makes all
Yeah.
the difference. So I think the more you could teach parents, of course, I'm going to say that's always the better thing, or let them get some sticks in hand because it is incredibly cathartic. Wall ball is very cathartic. It's frustrating, but it keeps you focused. But then once you start getting that rhythm, it
Yeah.
really is,
No
it's
doubt.
quite cathartic. So that would be my
Yeah.
parent tip there. Because they just
Perfect.
don't know. They don't know what they're looking at, the whole thing, and they want to be they want to be involved. All parents want to be involved and be supportive. So, all
I
right. So I'd say good.
I know I was saying I just took my US box law referee test. So I actually will be reffing box because I'm just like, all right, just try something new, like I
Yeah.
want to. So I'll be doing that and pretty excited about that. Probably do a little reffing in the spring as well.
Are you gonna wear the helmet or not? Are you gonna put on the helmet as a as a box ref?
I don't think so.
You're
I
gonna be a no helmet guy. All right.
I don't know. No, probably not.
Maybe it depends on what level of how old the kids are that are playing.
That's
That's
probably
fair,
that's
right?
yeah, you got me on that, probably.
Yeah, some of them are winging it pretty far hard there. So, just kind of wrapping up. So, we're doing this kind of as part of this big table talks and the FCA, and we're talking about the community. And I love what you're doing because it goes right into community engagement, youth, well-being, et cetera, um, and growing the game. And Urban Lacrosse does it so uh, well. I just say on that note, since we're talking about FCA, spiritually, right? From a spiritual piece of this, do you see a difference with players, with teams, if they have a spiritual component or not? And I'm going to tie into what lacrosse, because you mentioned it, not everybody understands really the creator game piece of it. But what is the
Yeah.
spirituality piece that lacrosse has that I think is very unique to it?
Yeah, I think for me, it's so hard to explain because like I know at times certain family members have said like they see everyone sees religion as a certain thing. In my opinion, I think everyone has their own spiritual individuality, and it's a self exploration. And it's just hard to judge somebody on their own personal. It's such a personal relationship,
Yep.
that for me, like the creator's game has been that relationship for me. Like it has allowed me to do things to help others, and put me in a good, um, spiritual state of mind. Like I lean on it, like heavily. So like if I'm on a field on a Sunday, honestly, that's like I can't think of a better place where I can have a bigger impact to do good work. But I also found out with we started a kayak business. I think putting people out on the water and allowing them to connect, connectivity with nature, and it's hard for me. I appreciate scripture, but like that's not where I necessarily find always. I always find guidance in there, but
Hmm.
spirituality comes on a field or on the water, like certain
Hmm.
things. And I think everyone connects differently. And I think you can see it in certain players and certain kids, like they're in a different place. I always tell our kids when I coach, like when you walk through that gate, you can leave everything, the girlfriends, the homework, if you're fighting with your parents, you can leave that at the gate. Like you put your helmet on, you're with your buddies, you're in your place. Nothing else should matter other than honoring the game, playing the game hard. So I think everyone kind of approaches that maybe a little bit differently, but yeah, there's not. You listen to the Thompsons, and you can listen to Chief, Oren Lyons, and
Hmm.
some of the, I encourage anybody to go listen to anybody talk about them, any kind of Native American talk about the medicine game in their own words. It's pretty moving.
Hmm. It's incredibly moving. But I think you just summed it up so nicely, which is that once you can kind of transcend into that role, everything is okay. Like you said, you lean on it, right? You lean on it. It's a place where it's wholesome and good. And you just said it. You from that point, you're doing good work. Right. And
Yeah,
that's that whole heart of servant leadership in a nutshell. I think
yeah.
that's a great,
That's been my
yeah.
approach. Whether someone else thinks it's right or wrong, that's a them thing, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
it's that's
Well,
you.
it seems to work for you. You're pretty successful.
Well,
You've done a couple
I
things, so it seems to be
yeah,
working.
yeah,
Probably stick with that. That seems like a good
sure,
protocol for you.
yeah. Well, I
Oh,
appreciate you having me, and certainly hopefully these, my experiences help others. Like because it's like I said, it came to be a whole trifecta when I became on the other side of it.
hmm.
I will say two things really changed me from the day I started coaching till currently. One is when I had kids, because now I know what it's like to have someone else coaching your kids.
Yep.
Like and not to say that people that don't have kids can't be great coaches, but it's
Hmm.
definitely a way different perspective.
It's
you
different.
know,
Which is different. Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the other one I used to say is, like I said, when I, we don't recruit the family, recruit the kid. I changed my mind on that completely. Like I think you do recruit the family. Like, and I think that it's just like everyone's such a part of it. Like it's such a major
Yeah.
decision for the family. Like it's their money. It's sometimes it's like their investment.
Yeah.
It was them driving the Johnny
Yeah.
to the tournaments. It was them footing the bill for the the equipment. And so yeah, you do need to have a relationship with the parents as a college coach. I feel strongly about that now. Like
Yeah.
maybe when I
I agree.
was
Well, yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think as parents also, I mean, I think we kind of say like, you get a coach and they have little kids, you're like, oh, they don't know yet. They just don't know yet, right? They haven't gone through that process. It's a big difference. Not that they can't be, again, terrific coaches, but it's just different. And you watch the coach who has then gone through with kids, their own kids, and you watch the humility, because now to your point, they've got all those perspectives. And it's hard, but I do think again, the more we can educate parents, a lot of times I think you don't want the parents who are all in everybody's business because you need to have the athlete have the relationship with the coach. But I do think sometimes we leave the parents on the sideline and they would do a lot better if they were educated and knew their role, right? A lot of times they just don't know their role. So they just kind of run amok. And then whoever's the strongest parent ends up dominating the parent herd, right? So if they don't know how to cheer correctly and they don't know like what to cheer for, right? The whole thing can go things go sideways. So I'm always a big fan of helping to educate the parents to support the coaches and the athletes, right? And everybody kind of knows their spot. But on that end, I mean, it's as you know, I mean, it's incredibly difficult to be the parent and step back and all those things. And then you love the coaches, and if you're so happy when you get a coach like you, and you're blessed to know that your kid is in a good place. And I think the most important thing is, I think all good coaches, they say that it's never about the wins and losses. It's always about the player development, right? And I think that's the key, which you always look for in a good coach. So thanks for being a good coach.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I think, yeah, the process is, yeah, winning is definitely a byproduct of the process. And I think so many times we, lose sight of that. It's just, it's crazy. Like if you're not doing, if you're not seeing the results you want, it's like you go back and look at the process. It's like studying for a test, like, if I just read I talk about all the time. So that's part of the fun, like if you're not finding what you're looking for, then you're looking in the wrong spots.
Right. Yeah. Good point. That's good for
Thank
all of
you.
us, right?
Yeah, right. No doubt. I mean, it's just lacrosse. That's everything.
That's everything. That's life. Well, as always, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. If we want to find Urban Lacrosse, where would we find it on the website?
Yeah, of course. We're at www.urbanlacrosseacademy.com. I know a lot of people are like, I have no way, that I can ever contribute, in any way. And it's untrue, because I think everyone has time, treasure, or talent. That's what I try to explain. If you have time, treasure, or talent, you can, support our mission and what we're trying to do. Being a mentor, like being there on the sideline or whatever, or if you do have, a company that has a grant or something like that, and just emailing me and say, hey, we might have an opportunity for you here. We do some health grants, whatever. I'll write a grant. I have no problem with that. If you have a talent, if you're social media, you run social media outlets, and you're like, hey, I could cut up some, there's always something, like that I feel like people can do. If you have board or 501c3 experience and you want to be a board member, great. So if
And
you have
one of the most
equipment,
important things, got word of mouth. Word of mouth.
yeah. Even
Yep.
if your
Huge.
kids don't play anymore, you got a garage full, still good. Like, we take it. I mean, there's always something. So yeah, we appreciate anybody that wants to step up for the kids and make stuff happen for them.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take
Appreciate
care.
your time.
Yeah. God bless.